So this is so cool. This is probably the fourth or fifth time I've done this, where I've just picked out people out of LinkedIn that I'm just fascinated by and am interested by, and say, hey, like, would you be interested in just hopping on a call and we'll record it and we'll just kind of see what happens? And so far, I'm about 4 for 4 of people like you saying, why the heck not? So
Sure, sure.
I I was so you posted earlier this week about the launch of your book, which is something I've been keeping an eye on for quite a while. And I went
Yes, sir.
out in the 2 minutes after seeing that and bought my copy, which isn't here yet. And
Great.
then I sent you a DM and I said, "Hey, would you get on a call?" And you said, "Why the heck not?"
Sure.
So here we
No,
are.
that's I'm proud to be on your show.
Well, I'm proud to have you. I think calling it a show might be an exaggeration at this point, but
Oh,
we shall see.
yes, sir.
So look here, I don't have questions scripted. I'm just curious. So we're just going to have a little conversation
Sure.
about you. You can ask questions of me, but I am sincere when I say you're somebody who jumps out at me on LinkedIn amongst all the flurry of content and really smart people and people who make me stop and think. You're one who, whenever I see the mustache and the hat, I'm like, I'm gonna hop on this and just see what Mr. Charles has to say. So
Yes,
I'd
sir.
loved, you're a Texan through and through. I get that, but I would love it if you just kind of share with us a little bit of your story.
Well, where would you like for me to start?
I want to start at your first childhood baseball game.
Uh, well, that would have been out in a field with me and some of my friends, where we two captains were chosen, and we tossed the bat, and then worked it up to see who the last one to have a grip on it. They got to choose first, and we there might just be 5 or 6 of us, but we'd form up teams and we played ball. Uh, that that's pretty much it. I never played organized sports until I was in school, but in those early days, we were just kids out outside trying to find something fun to do, and quite often we decided to play ball.
And um, uh, were you in a field? Like you had to just kind of bring shirts for bases, or was it more organized than that?
We used rocks for bases usually, and very informal. Just a long time ago, just kids out playing. But it was a lot of fun, and grew up in a great family, great mom and dad. I have one older sister, and grew up and joined the Marine Corps. That was my first big adventure. And after military service, I just started trying to find my way in life, and worked at different odd jobs, but always had a sense I wanted to have my own business. So I started different businesses along the way, and some of them failed, and some of them actually worked their way into another opportunity, and finally settled in with a good business that kept me going until I was 74 when I retired. And I then somehow or another started writing a book, and that's it in a nutshell.
So awesome. You gave me a lot to pivot from, but I want to go back to um, high school and your decision notionally. I'd imagine it was in high school or shortly thereafter, where you decided. I'm assuming you decided, and maybe you were drafted to join the Marine Corps. Can you what? Um, how were the conversations in the house when it came to be that you were going to join the Marine Corps?
Not so good. Uh, they Vietnam was kicking up at that time in 1965, and my mom and dad were real concerned about it because I was 19 and of age, and a little too old at that time for them to just put their foot down with me about it. And I come from a long life, a long line of men in my family who went to war. My daddy was in World War II. My great grandpa was in World War One. I had a great uncle in the Spanish American War. Two grandpas on both sides of my family fought in the Civil War, one for the North and one for the South. And then it goes back to the Revolution, where on both sides of my family, my mom and dad's side, my grandfathers fought in the Revolution, Henry Banta and Jacob Hamm. And so I'm a son of the Revolution twice. And I had a sense that in each generation, these men had heard the drums, and there was a sense of this is my time, and so I need to do my part like everyone else did, and so I decided to go join the Marine Corps, and was a young patriotic man full of vinegar and eager to go do my part, and that's pretty much the story of how that all came about. I had gone to college for a year, but decided I needed to do my part. And after I got out of the Marine Corps, I went to school on the GI Bill, which was a blessing. And that's really my story. Just a sense of following in the tradition of my ancestors and serving my country. That's how I felt.
That is awesome. You said two sentences back to back that I'm going to remember. You said, "I heard the drums and I knew this was my time."
Yes, sir. I really felt that way. I really did.
That's pretty awesome.
Yes.
So a couple things. One, I have to call you Mr. Charles because you've never referred to me as anything other than Mr. Lon. So, Mr. Charles, thank you for your service, man. I appreciate
Well,
it.
thank you, sir. I appreciate you saying that. It means a
Ab-
lot.
Absolutely. And what a great, and I haven't read your book and I promise I'm going to. And I don't know if any element of what you just said about your lineage and your generations of service to our country, even when our country was in conflict with itself, is pretty rare and awesome. So,
Well, thank you. Thank you. It's mentioned in the book. I've actually searched for the graves. Alexander Kimes Ham was my great grandpa, and he fought for the Confederacy. And John Robert Dayton was my great great grandpa on my mother's side, and he fought for the Union. And I've actually gone back to Kentucky and searched for their graves, and I found the cemetery, an old cemetery where Alexander is buried, but I couldn't find a marker. It was just all grown up, and they were very poor people, and probably just put a stone up there at his grave. But miraculously, I found another old cemetery searching for John Robert Dayton, and actually found his grave. And behind his grave was the grave of his father, my great 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 grandfather. And that was a special time. And I'm going back to Kentucky in June, and I'm going to be looking for Henry Banta and John or Jacob Hamm, the two Revolutionary War veterans. I'm determined to find their graves as well. It's I have a sense of just showing respect, you know, to stand at their graves and tip my hat to them and give them a salute. It means a lot to me.
Well, do me a favor. When you do, make sure that you find someone around you to take a picture. And I would love nothing more than to see it on, see it in any way I can see it, and hopefully on LinkedIn. And I know you'll give one of the world's best tributes to him, because I'm wired like you, to be motivated to do that, out of respect, and I would love to see it. And
Well,
by the
thank
way,
you, sir.
thousands of others would too. I promise you that.
Well, I appreciate this. They had to have been good men, and I respect that. I actually have a great uncle, uh, John Robert Dayton Jr., who was the son of my great grandfather. He fought in the Spanish American War, and I found his grave last year at Fort Bliss in El Paso, Texas. His was much easier to find. It was in a regular cemetery, and I had a real strong sense once I learned of him to go visit his grave, because he was from this little place out in rural Kentucky. And I knew that not one person from his family had ever gone out there to visit his grave. By the time it would have even been possible, uh, he was he was a couple of generations removed from the people who would have known and loved him, and it was a special moment to visit with him and have a little conversation. You know, we both served, and that was really special to me too.
That is
I'm
awesome.
a sentimental old fool. You
Oh
could
man,
probably tell.
I can, and I love it. And I think sentimentality comes, I get more sentimental as I get older. I mean, I, I don't know what it is. Stuff that 15 years ago wouldn't have fazed me now kind of stops me dead in my tracks. And I'm just, I'm drawn to appreciate a moment, differently than I was years ago.
Yes, sir. I'm having trouble hearing you now, Mr.
All right.
Ron.
All right. I'll try to speak up a little bit.
That's a lot better.
Okay.
That's better. Yes, sir.
Okay. Sounds good. Thanks for telling me.
Yes,
But I'm with you. I'm getting more and more sentimental as I get older, and I think that's normal.
I think it is too. It has been something that's happened over the years. As a younger man, I was a different man than I am now, and life has a way of making you appreciate things that maybe you didn't think so much about when you were younger, and realize how meaningful it is to you. But I'm like that way with a lot of things. The longer I have something, the more I appreciate it. It's like an old hat or a vehicle. Uh, you reach a point where you think about all the things you've done wearing that hat or something, and it just becomes a source of memories to you. And so I'm a little silly about that as well.
Oh man, I love it. Well, I could talk an hour more on this, but I want to move to kind of the next phase. And one of the things, like I said, we scheduled this and we hopped on, and in 10 minutes before this, I'm like, I'm gonna just see what I can learn in a few minutes. And the thing that jumped out at me, uh, and it seems out of place, and you're gonna have to find its place for me, is the fact that you went to college and studied classical Greek and Hebrew.
Yes, sir, I did. I sure did.
So You told us about the conversation in your house when you said, Mom, Dad, I'm going to join the Marine Corps. I feel this is my time." How was the conversation when you said, "I'm now going to go to college with my GI Bill and I'm going to study classical Greek and Hebrew"?
They were a little befuddled by it. I think my daddy was a brilliant man, but he had an eighth grade education. He graduated from elementary school and he went to work, and that wasn't that unusual back then. And he I think he was kind of proud of me. I I've always had an interest from a young boy in history, particularly ancient history, and had visions of maybe being an archeologist. And I thought, well, a knowledge of these languages might be helpful, but it never really materialized. Uh, I didn't fit in with the archaeological community and learned rather quickly that they were more about indoctrinating me than they were uh, allowing a young man to have his own views about things and at least ask questions. And I found it a rather staid environment where everyone was in a box, and I wanted to get out of the box and look around. So uh, the education itself ended up having only one thing that I could think of that might have been of value. When someone found out what my degree was, no matter what the circumstances, they tended to think I was smart. And I realized I could play that for a little while before they finally figured it out. And it served me well a time or two. But it's kind of it was a long time ago, and I've moved on from there too. But it was I really enjoyed my studies. Was glad to get out of college. I was tired of reading and what everybody else wanted me to read and having to do all of the things that were demanded of me. And when I got through with college, graduated, I couldn't wait to start reading books that I wanted to read and that were of interest to me. And so my studies really began then.
I love it. I love it. Um, so let's move into, and I might come back to this quest for archaeology. I find an interesting parallel here with some of the stuff that you're doing. I think, quite honestly, you are actually an archaeologist, but not in the traditional sense. I want to move on to your professional career
Yes, sir.
after college, before retirement, that window, whatever it looked like, and not so much on the what you did, more so on what you learned. So, what are just some of the nuggets of lessons that you learned as you went through your 30s and 40s and 50s that you hope to instill into your kids as they were entering their 20s and 30s and 40s?
As it comes to business,
Yeah,
okay.
anything.
Yes, sir. I think in my professional life, uh, owning my own companies, the the most important thing that I considered, although it's nothing profound, is that you want to do a good job for your clients and and serve them well, uh, and you want to have good people that you surround yourself with. And the people that I love and appreciate the most and enjoy being with are people that are smarter than me and people who know things that I don't know. Uh, I recognize my own limitations. I'm a man of average intelligence, I like to think, and there's some really brilliant people out there. And if you can get them into your circle somehow, they make up for your shortcomings. So I always tell people not to be afraid to be in the company of people that know things you don't know, and of people who are smarter than you are, and to cherish their friendships and what they can bring to your life. Uh, I think I learned hard work. Uh, I hear people talk about working hard as opposed to working smart as opposed to working hard. I tell my people and my kids, it's not a choice. You can do both. You could work hard and smart, and the one that does both instead of one or the other is probably going to have an edge on the rest. These are little lessons that I pass on to people,
Yeah.
and I talk about leadership with them when they're in a position of leadership. I had with my people, it was always kind of a family, but I was the father, I, and it was my company, and so that's the way I sort of approached it, and we just had a great time, just like kids can have with their father. We'd get out and work and get the job done, but every now and then I had to be a father, and I'd lean on one of them a little bit and coach him up and mentor him, and yet he was still my son, and still had his job, and we just had a great time, and they were sometimes just brutal with me and their teasing of me, and I just enjoyed it as much as they did. They called me Mr. Charles, Mr. Charlie, Mr. C. Uh, some called me Pops. It was a lighthearted day in the field while we were working,
Okay.
and I just came to, now that I'm retired, it's sort of like the kids have all grown up and are just totally equal now. It's just man to man, and I have a great relationship with them even still. And so these are just little things that
Yeah.
I hope I've answered your question.
Did. I'm going to ask the same question, but a little differently. Um, can you, as you think back of what you learned, you talked about being the father, and when you think back of what you learned from your dad,
Yes.
what are one or two of the lessons that he taught you?
Well, Daddy was an old-fashioned father, and he he was a kind, loving man, but he was firm, never raised his voice to me, never shouted at me. But when he spoke, uh, it was best to pay attention. And we never got down on the floor and rolled around and wrestled or anything like that. But we went hunting together, we went fishing together, and had a great time and loved each other. But he always maintained a certain distance, that I think he had this sense that I've got this little boy to raise, and he's going to be grown up and gone in no time. And there's some things I need to teach him, that I need to tell him about. And he was very big on manners, uh, table manners, showing respect to other people, and being proper. And I never really understood where this came from, knowing the life that he had growing up in a very poor rural environment. But uh, his daddy was a no nonsense father, my grandpa, and yet somewhere daddy learned someone taught him, and he'd tell me not to put my elbows on the table, not to talk with food in my mouth, and say yes sir, no sir. yes, ma'am, and no, ma'am, stand up if a lady entered the room. And he even taught me that you walk on the street side of a lady when you're walking along. He actually taught me that. And I've wondered sometimes, he must have read a book or something at some point. But another great lesson that he taught me was, without ever saying a word, was authority. He never once claimed authority over me. He just had it. And that served me well later in life as I got older, of course. Uh, I became a man, and at that point, Daddy and I just became best buddies, and went on to have just a wonderful life together until he died. But he was always teaching me something.
That's what dads do.
Yes, they should do it. Yes, sir.
Exactly. So I want to transition to your book, and I want to talk about your book.
Okay.
And then I've got a little bit of a surprise, something I want to try. And you and I are we are cowboys on a rodeo bull here. We're just going to see how this is going to work. But I'd love to hear, how did you get to the point, like, I'm going to write a book, and who do you hope reads it?
I never really reached the point that I'm going to write a book until people on LinkedIn started telling me, Mr. Charles, you need to write a book. And I didn't have the slightest idea how to go about that. And I just kind of glibly pushed them off a little bit. And I said, well, I'm pondering on it. And one day, a man named Philip Reed, I acknowledged him in the dedication of my book. I don't remember ever really seeing him on LinkedIn before, but on one of the articles that I wrote, he commented. He said, "You need to write a book." And I said, well, I'm pondering on it. And this was a strong young man, and he said, "No, no, no." He said, "You need to write a book." And he said, he said, I recognize talent when I see it. And he said, "You need to write a book." And he said, "I'm going to get in touch with a publisher that I know and have her get in touch with you." Well, now I'm sort of losing control of this situation. and the next thing I know, Miss Hillary Jastrom up in Minnesota called, and uh, all of a sudden I'm writing a book. And she was just, I tell people that, my stars just aligned for this thing to happen. And the best people possible just started coming into my life out of nowhere. And I wrote the book, and Miss Hillary made it a book. And I found out rather quickly that what I was talking about before, you need to surround yourself with people who are smarter than you are and who know things that you don't know. And I gave her just a free rein with just kind of my ideas, and she took it and ran with it and just did a masterful job. But that's how the book came to be. Uh, as I said once before, I just sort of got horsed into it and and didn't know where else to go. So that's how it came to be.
I love it. Well, so here's what I want to do. My dad is 82, and he's a South Dakota cowboy, and he's
Uh,
never in his life read a book.
oh,
I'm going to invite him into this conversation, and you and I are going to try to convince him that the first book he's going to read is Ponder on It Pilgrims.
Well, that would be an honor.
All
That
right.
would just be an honor. Yes,
So
sir.
he has no idea what's happening here. And I'll just warn you, he doesn't know how to do Zoom. He's never stopped a VCR from flashing 12 o'clock. So my mom is riding shotgun here. So
Well,
we're gonna
that's the
bring him
way
in.
I am. This is all new to me. I'm just getting to a point where I could could make it happen. I always need a lot more help. There's that gentleman up there right now. Good morning,
Yeah.
sir.
You see him? Hey, Dad, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Well, I want to introduce you to my good friend, Mr. Charles Hamm.
Say hello.
Hello, Mr. Hamm.
Hello, sir. How are you this morning?
I'm doing great, but I'll get better.
Well, that's right. That's right. Yes, sir.
So, Dad, Charles and I have been connected on LinkedIn, which is something I'll explain to you after the call what that is. But anyway, we've been connected and just sharing life stories and just life activities and philosophy on life for probably well over a year. And Mr. Charles decided quite recently, after some pushing from people on LinkedIn, that maybe he should write a book. And so he's done that, and I've got mine on order. And so we're talking about his book and how he got to where he is. But I couldn't, as I was thinking about Mr. Charles and some of the things that I would see on LinkedIn, there were some buzzwords that came to mind. Everything that he wrote about was with the highest level of respect. And it was always decent. It was never taking one side over the other and pitting sides. And it was always full of wisdom. And it was always interesting. And I couldn't help, and I was wondering, why is this so familiar to me? And then I realized it was because, well, he reminds me a lot of my dad. And as you look at the pictures, maybe it makes sense now as to why that might be. So anyway, I wanted to bring you guys together and introduce you. And maybe, Charles, you could tell Dad just a little bit about your book.
Well, sir, the title of it is, I'll show you a copy of it. This is it right here. The title is Ponder On It Pilgrims. And it's just kind of the thoughts and thinkings of an old man looking back over his life. I'm 76 now myself, and as I look back over my life, the lessons that I'd learned the hard way many times started coming into focus, and I thought about it, and different things would come to mind to just kind of write about. And after a while, I had this body of material, and some good people came into my life and turned it into a book. And it's just come out just this last week in the paperback version. It's just about common sense and wisdom and making good decisions. And my target audience is anybody, but I'm especially hoping that it'll catch on with the young folks that might make better decisions than I did when I was young. So that's kind of what it's all about. Just being a good person, being nice to people, and not doing stupid things or saying stupid things, and being happy and calm and at peace with yourself.
Well, that does sound like a great book.
Well, I time will tell. It's out there now, and we'll see what folks think about it. But I'd encourage you to. I'd be honored if you read it. I absolutely would. You look like my kind of man.
Yeah, well, thank you. Well, we ran our farm and ranch out to our daughter and son-in-law, and of course, people ask me, well, I suppose you're out there helping, and I suppose you're doing decisions, and I say, no, no, no. When I retired. I just look out the kitchen window. And when it comes to making management decisions, it didn't seem like I done anything right. So why would they want to ask me for advice when everything I did went backwards? So
I know the feeling. Yes,
So-
sir.
Dad, do you have handy a list of all the books you've read?
yeah, I do. I got it right here.
And
I have never read a book in my life.
Well, my goodness.
I'm dyslexic and I have a terrible time comprehending what I read. But I do, my wife Sharon bought what do you call that machine?
The DVD player.
DVD player, and then I get DVDs, and so I listen to other people read books to me.
Okay. I'll have an audio out sometime reasonably soon. That's
Yes.
my next project. So maybe you can listen to it someday.
Okay. Are you doing
Yes.
the reading?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I'm not a professional reader. This is all new to me. I've never done anything like this before. But people have insisted that I do the reading. And so that's going to be a challenge to read it and read it well. But I'll go for it.
Yep. Yes. Well, I'll definitely want to. We'll get a DVD then, and I definitely will listen.
Well, that's great. I'd be honored.
Once in a while, I have a tendency to doze off, so then I got to redo the same day over again.
I hear you, brother. Yes, sir.
so, Mr. Charles, what is it that you've always wanted to ask a South Dakota rancher?
Well, I think the first thing that comes to my mind when I think about South Dakota is the cold winters. And that must be quite a challenge up there, but y'all are used to it. That hardy northern stock y'all have made y'all tough, industrious people. I've lived out in South Texas almost most of my life, and every now and then it snows a little bit, and my first thought is to move further south. But I'm not a cold weather guy. It just cuts through me like a knife. But I know that's a beautiful country up there. I've actually been up there and driven across the state, and even stopped at Mount Rushmore. Had to see that, and it's beautiful country up there.
Yes, it is. Yeah, my great grandparents homesteaded here in 1881, and our ranch is 2 miles from where they homesteaded, so we didn't get too far. But when you're born and raised in an area, it can get really adverse. All right, we do have some severe blizzards, and it does get cold, but it's nothing like now, like it was when I was a kid. Even if you had a new car. Back in the 40s, the thing probably wouldn't start, and you had no way to move the snow, and modern technology makes life a lot better up here than it was 60, 70 years ago.
Yeah, I'm sure it does. It's interesting you say that. My folks, my roots go back to Kentucky, and they get some winter time up there every year.
Yeah.
And I remembered the old folks when I was a boy always talking about the hard winters. And it seemed to them that it used to be a lot colder than it was at the time of their lives. But it's I guess it's just what you get used to. People come down here and they feel like they can't hardly breathe because the air it's so humid and hot in the summertime, especially.
Yes.
But I don't even think anything about it. It's just the way it is.
So what kind of cattle you have? What breed?
Well, I don't have that many cattle. I'm not a cattle rancher. I have a few on the place, but it's mostly just uh, land, and I enjoy the wildlife, and
Okay.
it's a place to get away and just sit on the front porch of the cabin at a rocking chair and watch the hummingbirds, and
Yeah.
consider it time well spent.
Right. Yes. Yes. Well, I grab a cooler and put it in my ATV, my Polaris, and I go out in the middle of the cows in the summertime, and the little calves are curious, and they come up and they schnoozle on my fingers, and I'm sitting there drinking a cool one while a 3-month-old calf is smelling and licking on the end of my fingertips. And man, it just don't get better than that.
Oh no! I love the calves coming.
Yeah.
It's just it's the good life. No,
It sure
I
is.
don't compare to you when it comes to being a rancher, but I'm a country boy, and I'm out there, and I've got a place.
So one more question, and then I'll let Mr. Charles get back to what he probably thought he was going to be doing today.
Get back to his rocking chair on the front porch.
No, I had no real expectations. I was just going to sit here and let Mr. Lod take the lead and talk about whatever he wanted to. So I'm just rolling along with it.
We've had a good run. I decided to bring my dad into this just minutes before the call. And so he has no idea what's going on, even less than I do, and I don't have much. So Dad, thanks for being a good sport. Mr. Charles, thanks for being a good sport about it.
No, this
Honor
is
to
great,
meet you, sir. Yes, sir.
We got to ask. If I don't ask, I'm going to get 100 questions. Who started growing a mustache first?
Yours was in 76.
Mine was in 1976 when we had the bicentennial. Our little local town here had a beard contest. So naturally, I entered the beard contest. And then after the celebration was over, I shaved everything off except the mustache. And that was 1976. So it's been a long while.
Well, I would go back probably around 1995, I guess, when I first grew mine.
Okay.
And it was just kind of on a whim. I mean, I lathered up to shave one morning and decided not to shave my upper lip and never have since.
Ran out of lather, huh?
Yeah, I guess so. Yes, sir.
Well, here's the truth. I wouldn't know either one of you without your mustache. So I'd encourage you both to keep them.
I might as well go with it now.
Well, thank you both for joining. This was spectacular. Dad, I'm going to find a book you're going to actually read, even if I've got to write it myself.
Better have a lot of pictures.
Yeah.
Duly noted. So, Mr. Charles, thanks a bunch. I do find it interesting that you grew up wanting to be an architect, and I view an architect as somebody who knows where to dig, and I think, an archaeologist. You grew up wanting to be an archaeologist, and I view an archaeologist as somebody who knows where it is to dig, and an architect knows what it is to dream. And it seems to me like every time I read something you've written, there is archaeology there. You're showing me where to dig, and I just really appreciate that. And I think that your message, as you're showing other people where to dig, is really powerful. So while you might not know it, I think the fact that you've found your calling as an archaeologist has made its roots, and I'm sure I'm going to feel the same way when I read your book.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, sir. It's very kind of you. I appreciate it.
And
Means a lot.
You're absolutely welcome. And just chalk me up as one of the biggest and loudest members of the Charles Hamm fan club.
Well, I didn't know one existed. Maybe I'll have to come by and meet him someday. I hope you'll be there.
I'll tell you what, I think you two together in South Dakota could do some damage. So
Well,
consider it an open invite.
I think so. Yes, sir. We might be more than they can handle together.
All right. Well, thank you both. And Charles, I'll see you around LinkedIn. Dad, I'll see you around the flip phone.
Okay. Yes,
All
I
right.
got my flip phone handy.
All right. Sounds good. Thanks, guys.
Yes, sir.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.